Good morning. Today we're going to talk about cell energy. We're going to talk about photosynthesis and cellular respiration and how these two reactions play a huge role with one another. First, let's talk about the organelles where these reactions take place. Photosynthesis is going to take place in the chloroplast. Remember that structure we could only find in plant cells. Each chloroplast is going to be made up of several tiny stacks. Each stack is going to be called grana, and each stack of grana is made up by individual thylakoids. See, in this stack we have many thylakoids that make up one stack of grana. Then the thylakoids are covered by a thick fluid called stroma. Now the two places we're going to see the reactions for photosynthesis happening is in the thylakoid and in the stroma. Next reaction we'll have is cellular respiration. And that's going to happen in the mitochondria. Remember the mitochondria responsible for making that ATP? ATP being that fully charged battery we need. So in the mitochondria we make ATP. The mitochondria has two important parts for reactions: the inner membrane, which is made up of all these little folds. Each individual fold is called the cristae. The cristae allows me to increase the surface area of the mitochondria. Inside of the mitochondria we have the matrix. It is the filling of each little mitochondria. Now we have to remember where we can find those organelles. Prokaryotics, no membrane-bound organelles. So that's going to be very important when we think about aerobic cellular respiration and photosynthesis. Next we have our organelles. In a plant cell, they have mitochondria just like animal cells have mitochondria. Do you have chloroplasts? Is your skin green? Nope, only plants have those chloroplasts. So our plant cell will have photosynthesis and cellular respiration, where the animal cells only have respiration. Let's look at the overall equation. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration could be thought of as the opposite in the reactants to the products. Let's look at the reactants of photosynthesis: carbon dioxide, water, and light. And that light is energy. We get that energy from the sun. That energy. Then if we look at the products of cellular respiration, we see carbon dioxide, water, and energy. That energy being in the form of that charged up battery, ATP. Now if we look, the reactants for photosynthesis are the products of cellular respiration. And then we look at photosynthesis products. We have glucose and oxygen. The products of photosynthesis are going to become the reactants of cellular respiration. We take this glucose and we put it into cellular respiration, take the oxygen and put it into cellular respiration, and we get out the products of cellular respiration, which will then turn to be the reactants of photosynthesis. Let's break down each equation. Photosynthesis can be broken into two reactions. My first reaction being the photo half of photosynthesis. Photo, light, take a picture. Photo is taking in all that light. So first we take in the sun, and for this reaction we also need to take in the water. So we take in sun and water, and out comes our product of oxygen gas. Breathe in. That's coming off, all that oxygen is thanks to our light-independent reaction. Our second reaction takes up that charged up energy that we made from our first reaction, which would be charging our batteries like ATP and our other battery that we call NADPH. Those are just charged up batteries, just like a fully charged cell phone. You can't work unless it is all charged up and ready to go. Now we're ready for our second reaction, the synthesis half of photosynthesis. We are going to make glucose. We're going to synthesize. To do that, we need to be in the stroma. The stroma being that fluid part of the chloroplast. This reaction is light independent. It's independent of light. It can work without light. Another name is the Calvin cycle. The light independent reaction takes in carbon dioxide. All that carbon dioxide you're exhaling, a plant can take it in. Takes in that carbon dioxide, and with the help of those batteries will produce its product of glucose, that molecule of a monosaccharide that gives us all that energy. Now we can see how this glucose is going to give us energy in the form of ATP. Our next reaction we look at is aerobic cellular respiration. Now we're going to have to differentiate because aerobic is going to be with oxygen. I'm going to talk about anaerobic a little bit later. Aerobic cellular respiration is broken down into 3 reactions. The first reaction being glycolysis. Glycolysis is going to take place out in that cytoplasm, in the jelly-like substance. This is the only process that does not need oxygen gas to begin in the process of aerobic cellular respiration. It doesn't need any oxygen. All it needs is a glucose molecule, just that glucose molecule, and a little ATP. With the power of that ATP, we can split this molecule into 2 things called pyruvic acids. These pyruvic acids are going to be 3 carbon molecules. So we think about 6 carbons can be split down into 2 threes. Now to split those down, we get off some charged up energy, which we'll use later in the electron transport chain, but we get off some ATP. Now let's think about this. If you had to spend 2 ATP, but you made 4 ATP, we're really only getting a net total of 2 ATP. So from glycolysis, we say that we get 2 ATP. But really what the whole purpose of glycolysis is to get each one of these pyruvic acids. Now we're ready for my second reaction, the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle allows me to take those pyruvic acids and convert it into energy so that I can go to my electron transport chain. The Krebs cycle happens in the matrix. Remember the filling of our mitochondria? Now for the Krebs cycle to work, we have to take in each one of those pyruvic acids one at a time. Now to get into a mitochondria, you have to pay the fee of oxygen. See, we use oxygen as a reactant. The oxygen allows you to enter into a mitochondria. So without an oxygen, you cannot get into a mitochondria. Outcomes from each reaction, we go through the reaction twice, one through each pyruvic acid. We will get a total of 6 carbon dioxide molecules, but most importantly, we want to get out energy. We're getting out 2 ATP. 2 ATP. Now, these ATP are nothing compared to our third reaction, the third reaction of the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain happens in the inner membrane. You remember all the folds, the cristae? We need a lot of surface area because we need a lot of electron transport chain to work. We take all of those energy that we charged up from the Krebs cycle with the help of oxygen. Remember, anything in the mitochondria has to have oxygen. So taking in oxygen and the charged up energy that we got from the Krebs cycle, we are allowed to make a waste product of the water, but most importantly what we're trying to make is energy, and we're going to get out 32 ATPs. Look how much that is in comparison to our first 2 cycles. Again, we can look at these equations. We put in, for our first reaction, we had light and water, and out came oxygen. For the photo part of our light-independent reaction in the thylakoid, then our second reaction we put in carbon dioxide and we got out glucose, happening in 2 reactions for photosynthesis. Our cellular respiration took part in 3 reactions. First, I had to split my glucose and then take it into my next reaction. With the presence of oxygen, I'm going to get out the carbon dioxide from the Krebs cycle, the water from the electron transport chain, but most importantly, energy. I get out 2 ATP from glycolysis, 2 ATP from the Krebs cycle, but most importantly, 32 ATP from the electron transport chain. Give me a grand total of 36 ATP. Now we can look at this together. As this endergonic relationship of photosynthesis, endergonic energy going into the reaction, out comes a glucose molecule and oxygen. It's going to be best friends with the mitochondria as that glucose and oxygen go into the mitochondria, and out comes carbon dioxide and water. But most importantly, the exergonic reaction of ATP. Cellular respiration and photosynthesis working together. Next time we will look about how you can go through aerobic respiration and then maybe go back and do anaerobic. That's for our next time. See you then.